birth certificates, right, if you have one, right? So what our point is, you guys own it.
So the information was, it's public record that is managed by the state of Utah.
Okay, so that's, well, what if you don't want your public information public?
Like this name right here, for instance, on mine, Troy Anthony, that's a private, personal, God-given property.
They call it the Christian name.
Right, it's the God-given Christian, personal,
that your parents
private
gave
property. What I'm trying to figure out is my mother, it's non-transferable too. There's no way to transfer private property to the public
You gotta make
domain.
an appointment.
So how does the state have the right to use my private, personal property on a public record?
It might have something to do with at the time of birth, you know.
My mother unknowingly
mother-
gave the state access to personal private property
But
that
then
they
how
I'm
do
shouldn't
not,
you
I'm
have.
not sure. That's
Right,
just
you're
me
not,
guessing,
but what I'm
you know.
saying is,
We're just asking, we wanna know, who can we
Right.
talk to that will give us that
and every
information?
time we go down this path,
It's someone else or someone else.
somebody directs you to somebody else, and then they direct you down a path that goes nowhere. It's confusing.
We
It
just wanna know,
seems
do you own it? Are we
What
becoming
we're
the
trying to get at
surety
It's because
for
we're in
this?
Wonderland.
Right.
You
Are
know?
we becoming the
The
surety
Alice in
for the
Wonderland.
dead? Which is really the person that they've created, the state
right
has
because
created.
the state is issuing debt. For instance, like on the $2.2 trillion bailout that Trump
Okay,
did,
watch out,
and then
move. I gotta do
the
something.
2.3 that what's
Look
his
at
name
that.
did.
Oh.
All that debt goes on to this name, this public legal name, Troy Anthony Cox. And so the state is suing the birth certificate, basically. They're suing it because they're issuing debt in the name of the certificate.
Yeah, I know.
And
that's
they're piling the debt onto the name.
That's
What I'm
they
trying to
say,
figure
they
out
say
is
it's the mortgage on the
if
people.
if a society is really debauched, debased, where they allow, say, 25,000 people a day to starve to death, right? 25 million people a year, or 10 million people starve to death a day, or 10 million people starve every year, right?
Okay.
And the state doesn't see fit to care about those people to feed them or to give them food. Yet the state can issue $10 trillion to bail everybody.
Well, did you
to
know
bail
that
out
there's a
corporations,
check written
to make
in
sure
our
that
name?
the people don't
every
get
month,
a cold
wherever we're
or
born?
whatever, so they can issue
Yeah.
10 trillion in the people's name to keep people from getting a cold, but they can't issue 10 trillion to keep people from dying starvation.
Did you
So
hear
what, so what I'm trying to say is, I don't want to be a part of a system that spends 10 trillion to save itself. A bunch of selfish people that only care about their own selfish existence.
go.
So they allow the state to issue $10 trillion in debt in the name of all of the public who doesn't want that debt.
Well, that's
But
what
at the
they
same
do.
time, the state that can issue that 10 trillion to save itself and save their people, they can't issue that debt to save the starving. I don't want to be a part of that system anymore. I can't. It's filthy. I mean, I read the Bible, and if you read the Bible, to be a part of commerce is to be basically not opinion or belief, is to be satanic.
Part of Babylon.
Right? You put value of money over the value of life.
Sorry.
I can't do that anymore. I got a conscience. I have a spirit and a soul that someday would like to, when I die, would be able to rejoin my children again. But I know as long as I'm in this state of filth and
It's not
debauchery,
him, but
then I'll never attain that, and I can't live that way anymore. So what I want to
the
do
question
is,
who could we talk to?
I want to get my personal private name
Okay.
off of the public record, so the state can't sue my personal private name
And
and
put that
leave
on our
me in
children
an
and-
unpayable debt. The United States went bankrupt in 1933. That's why the debt will never be paid. It just keeps growing, and we will always be slaves.
Well, that's
And I
as
don't
long as
want to be a
we're-
slave anymore.
And it's our choice.
Right.
Like
It's-
we have a conscience.
It's
Like
called
it's from
consent
God.
of the governed. I
Yeah.
want to remove my
Let
consent,
him
so I'm not
answer. Let him
governed.
answer.
So I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be answering
Well,
to.
I'm
Well, what I'm saying is, how do I get my
Well,
name
what
off the
I'm
public
really
record?
asking you is, who could we talk to?
Right.
I
for
think,
those.
I think it's the state registrar, honestly.
I'm sure there's some sort of recourse with the state registrar and then the
Mhm.
federal government to revoke your citizenship. That's the only sort of recourse
Okay, so now one more question.
I can think of.
Yeah.
Can I get the legislative thing for the, how would I get that?
Oh, the legislative or not
The statute.
Uh-huh.
the statute from
Uh-huh.
whenever what year
Yeah.
your birth certificate.
I mean, I
was.
could come